Hello and welcome everyone, my name is Drewlik, and today we are actually not going to do PvP. I'm going to show you some PvP so that you've got something to look at, but today's video is going to be a bit different in content. Usually I would provide commentary about all of what's going on in the game, but today I'm rather going to provide commentary on what is going on in the game, in a broader sense. Where does Star Wars The Old Republic stand from my perspective? It's a podcast type video, so it's, even though there's gameplay, it's essentially a podcast. So if you want to listen, to my insights on this kinds of things, if you want to know how my experience was in the last 3.5 years leading up to this, then feel free to listen. If you aren't interested in a video like this, feel free not to watch this and come back tomorrow when a regular video is going to be uploaded. So all the fun and happy times are still going to continue. So if you caught it, yes, I am a day one subscriber, and even before that, a beta weekend player, and pre-ordered Star Wars The Old Republic, and prior to that even sucked up all information available 2 years, before the release, eager to find out more about what was going to be the best Star Wars game of all time. Does anyone who has done similarly remember that? Playing the first beta weekends and just finding the first levels on Korriban or Hutta absolutely amazing, breathtaking, in awe about the level of story and detail in an MMO, or Odd Mantell and Typhon if you're a Republic scum. Now, 3.5 years later, down the lane, I have to say that even though it had its moments, my overall sentiment is that it is quite disappointing. Not because of what the game is, but because of what the game could have been. Many things factor into this could have been, to the many shortcomings of Star Wars The Old Republic has fleshed out during the years. If you, like me, have been with the game for such a long time, then you will, maybe know some of the, most notable things. The very first thing about Star Wars, and I'm sorry that I'm dwelling a bit into the history of this, but if, just to give you a short overview, if you are not, a day one subscriber, the very first thing that became clear and evident is that the game was not finished. This is perhaps the biggest flaw that Star Wars has and is still suffering from today, because it just lost all of its initial subscribers, everybody that was just so invested in this game and so in awe about what happened, the first 50 levels. It was such a good story. It was so nice to level in this game. Leveling wasn't tedious. Leveling wasn't experience. It was like a quota free as an MMO. It was amazing. And then there was nothing to do on level 50. I know that this has, been brought up in several ways. Several people have said that, well, there was content and maybe you aren't experienced. No, objectively speaking, you had 2 piss easy raids. The thing is about these raids, they are still, to this date, 2 of the most epic raids in terms of scope. Going into the Eternity Vault, dropping down from the launch pods and going into the first trash area that was just a trash area. It wasn't a boss fight room or anything. It was this just massive room with a tall ceiling, and it wasn't followed up anywhere near this scope anywhere in the game. It was better than World of Warcraft in these or maybe similar to it. It felt like a big epic room, and they could never recapture this kind of scope. They made better raids, mechanically speaking, but they never really captured this level of epicness that Eternity Vault or even Karaga's Palace had. And Karaga's Palace was widely regarded as a bad raid. But I think more so not because of the general aesthetic, but more because of the mechanics that they had. Well, as I was saying, piss easy. Yes, that was the main problem. Not only was the content, very easy, and it didn't feature different modes. So we did have 3 difficulty modes as we have today. We had normal, heroic, and nightmare, which weren't much different. There were no added mechanics. no further difficulties, no adds, nothing. That was just more HP, more damage, and even that was way undertuned. It was just so easy. They were so afraid that their entry-level raids weren't up to par, that people were thinking they're too hard and it would be an immediate turn-off. So they made them very, very easy, which was a very bad decision, because every hardcore raiding guild that wanted to quit WoW and switched over to Star Wars, expecting this to be their next game, found nothing to do. The content was gone, not like in progress times, like within a week, within a day, within the evening. You came online with your freshly leveled character in green gear, you cleared normal mode, grabbed some gear with that few gear you had, you just went in heroic, and that was it. That was it. That was what your PvE experience was for the 2 months following after that. The game was unfinished. It was not ready to be released. But EA, the cash-grabbing whore, which I'm going to be referring to several times in my opinion piece here, is that, it wanted to get Star Wars out to the December sales. And they did. And as a result, they just screwed over the entire game just to get more pre-order sales, which is something which is in gaming, which is popular in gaming in general right now. You make more money off of the pre-order sales and the general game sales than you are, interested in making a good game. You just want to overhype it, overbloat it, get all of the money, and then, whatever happens after, maybe it gets a cult following, maybe not, I don't know. We made our budget back, and that's all that matters. Pretty bad for the artistic expression of anybody who worked on Star Wars, because you can tell that the game got worse in the later stages. The first 50 levels, amazing, and after that you just knew, okay, they had one raid prepared, and they were working on the second one on Drewlik, but that was it. PvP was a mess at level 50. Don't get me wrong, it was nice. It was nice in that term that you could do different maps. It was very innovative, but again, we run into a different problem. It is the engine. The engine in which Star Wars runs is I don't know how to put it. It's a crap engine, and what I've been doing lately, what I've been up to be honest, is I've been, again, once more playing a bit of World of Warcraft. Now don't worry, I'm not, leaving that game behind me right now, like not leaving Star Wars, but it has brought to my attention all of the engine problems, because I have played Star Wars for such a long time. I just didn't know any better, but in the direct comparison to a working MMO, to a working game with a working engine, where commands are, being dealt with in near real time, and you do not have, I bet everybody knows this 1 second, the Juggernaut leaps to you, you use a movement, impairing immunity effect, and want to start running, but you can't. Half a second, you're still rooted. It's just this 1/2 second, and you can't move yet, but you will be able to move. It will happen eventually, but you can't. The same thing is you're getting stunned. You break and use your med pack. It's about 1/2 second delay until you actually break and actually take your med pack. This is 1/2 second in which you could actually die, which has happened to me. But I just thought, yeah, well, that's it. Well, maybe I have to break a bit earlier then, Maybe I just dealt with it. I was just like, well, that's how my life is. It's like being abused. Like, I know it's a horrible comparison for anyone who's been actually abused, but just bear with me for this analogy. Now, imagine you are just so caught up in your world and you just don't know that it is any better. You just think this is how life is. And for the same thing, it has been in Star Wars. I just thought this is how, the game or games are supposed to be. Even though I have played World of Warcraft prior to that. Now, going back to this, I just realized how much of how unsuited this game is to PvP. Like, of course, skill is a big factor in the game, and I still, to this day, am able to, outplay people and stuff like that. But I can just immediately see how anybody who has very high standards from similar games would be immediately turned off by such mechanics, by unresponsiveness in your controls. You are putting in 110%, the game maybe allows you 80% of your, maximum skill, which is quite infuriating, to put it that way. Now, I'm being very broad about these themes because I think that these are the core problems of Star Wars: The Old Republic. Many people have asked, on my opinion of specific topics, like what do I think about the resolve changes, what do I think about, the new economy updates for 3.3, which I am going to go into in this video as well. But I think the game in general has much more problems than just that. I think, of course, people are getting worked up about and are really passionate about single themes in this game. They're saying, well, look at this, I don't want this, I don't want having to deal with PvP players when I'm questing. I don't like it how they never respond to anything in the forums. I don't like how this is and how that is. I don't like the new content. I don't know how little content there's coming and stuff like that. The thing is, that is everything that is legitimate criticism about this game. Of course, it should exist, it's there. I share many similar opinions with these kinds of criticisms, but I think the main problem is that Star Wars needs to get its shit together in terms of the player base. We need more players. An MMO cannot work. It just cannot work without players. Every other problem is secondary. It doesn't matter how good your content is. I mean, of course, it's somewhat correlated. Of course, you need good content and stuff like that. But for the time being, everything that Star Wars is doing and is opting to do is not acquiring new players. Of course, they are through their free-to-play option. You see the Star Wars banners all over the internet. It feels like half of their budget is being blown on just acquiring new subscribers, just advertising everywhere. But the thing is, you're not providing a fun experience for anyone. It's very interesting that content is being recycled, and I can understand it from a developer standpoint. There is a lot of content in the game they have done previously, some of which the new players haven't yet experienced, so it makes sense to recycle the content. I wouldn't have that big of a problem with recycling content and, using old heroic instances and maybe, having a conquest where you have to revisit old areas which you have already forgotten, doing maybe, the Ilum heroic quest or the Vosh heroic missions. That's all fine because this is nice content actually. The problem is that you're not going to experience it with other players because Star Wars has bled out subscribers massively over the dry runs it had. For example, it was always bleeding and hemorrhaging PvP players because there was little to no emphasis on PvP for many months at a time. Maybe a new map. The biggest update for PvP was arenas and maybe the Quesh Hutball map that came in there. That's not content for PvP. That's not what I call content for PvP. Like, I know they're working on some fancy masks and some nice titles. I've been through that. I've farmed that once, and it's not worth the time actually, to go through the cesspool which is rated PvP, and it really is not a fun experience to play PvP anymore. At least not rated, at least not one. So you're kind of being left alone, and many players are leaving for that reason. And on the other hand, you have the PvE dry runs. So if you recall it, if you are a Star Wars player and you've rated PvE maybe, if you accept if you exempt nightmare content, because nightmare content is only for the very specific progression rated and is not what your average player is going to see. Of course, I know it's valid, it's there, it's an option, nice, okay. No, I'm not going to criticize that. In saying it's not really content. Of course, it's content. It's just another version of existing content, and it's valid. It's okay. But exempting the nightmare content of Dread Palace and Dread Fortress, that content lasted for a year. It came out, I believe, in 2013. Yeah, it was around October of 2013, and it lasted until 1 year's span was there, and it lasted until the end of 2.8 or whatever that patch was. Until 3.0 came, that was your content. It was there for a year. 10 bosses for a year. You just have to think about this rationally for a second. Of course, it was very good content. It was amazing. They really stepped up. I really liked that patch. I really did like that. I liked the bosses. I have avid memories of raiding with my guild, defeating the end boss on the hard difficulty. And doing everything, and it was a very fun experience. But that was over in about 2 months. If even if you're a bad guild, even if you're not into heavy progression, you're most likely gonna have 3 to 4 months, and that's it. Then you maybe farm it for another month or something like that. I am really stretching this out because it wasn't that hard. So to speak. So saying, you're about 3 to 5 months in this, and that's basically it. So generally what would happen in such a situation is that a slow progression guild, maybe you're going to have another 2 months of this content, and then you're going to move on to the next one, and then you're reasonably paced. All of your hard progression people are already bored out of their minds by that time because they have cleared it, in the first week, and maybe Nightmare then in the first month or second month or something like that. They are going to have around 4 months of twiddling their thumbs and something like that, and then they're going for the new content. But what Star Wars did was they let you wait for a year. They had everyone in that player base for a year. And I know that this was one of the times where the Star Wars continued to bleed out. I know that when free-to-play came, many people resubbed, many people came back to the game, but you have to ask yourself, are these the people you want to be catering to? Because they are not invested in the game as subscribers are. They are not paying the same amount of money as subscribers are. They are not the people buying the amount of cartel coins that these players are. The people that are passionate about the game, people who played it since day one, people who just who love Star Wars, like I do, like many people do. These are the most valuable people that you have to entertain for your game. And I'm not saying that in a demanding way, not saying like, oh my god, I'm paying $13 or 13 euros in a month, and therefore I'm entitled to this and this content, and I want that, and I want it all catered to my needs. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you should provide entertainment for these players, because they are going to be the players that are defining your game. They are making your game. This is your community. I know that Star Wars has a very bad history of actually managing the community. They have done so in the past. They are not nowhere near to the levels that Blizzard, as an example, or maybe Riot Games, is being with their community, how responsive they are, how many events they organize, and that also is a big problem. But the thing is, they are not required to even do that. They don't even have to do that. All they have to do is provide the proper platform in which we can play. We can provide. We can make our own community. We can make our own events. That's not even the problem. The problem is we cannot possibly convince other people to, essentially provide their own content. The content has to come from BioWare. It has to come from somewhere. It has to come from Star Wars. We can make everything in the community on our own, but we cannot provide more content. It gets old after a while. You can have PvP events. You can have an Ilum duel night, and it's terribly fun. But if you're hammering subscribers, if you're hammering people, if more and more people are going away because they do not see the reason why to play this game, then I can say you're not going to have a successful game. And speaking of which, what is, I don't want to be all negative and all criticizing about that. Now, what is the most important thing? Of course, I said player base. Now, if I'm queuing up on my server currently for a flashpoint, it's not going to open anytime soon. Even if I'm a tank and I am with a healer, it's going to take at least, 20 minutes until I'm going to get a pop for any heroic. And why? Why is that? Because nobody's interested in doing that. There's no incentive to do that, and the player base is just too small. It just makes no sense. Now, many people have asked, for cross-server and stuff like that, and I'm saying, no, that's not the way it is. It's very important that you have this community. It's very important that you do have these close encounters. You don't want to depersonalize your game further. If I look at games like WoW, I sometimes get in an instance in a dungeon and I do not talk a single word to anyone, and then I just leave and that's it. That is commonplace through these kinds of group finance because there's no attachment. Why should you write hello? You're most likely never going to see him ever again. He's from a different server, different time zone. Maybe you're not going to be queued again with him. I don't know. Why should that be? That shouldn't happen, of course. But in terms of populating the servers, it has to be done in a reasonable way. Now, it always, and this is the reason why this has not happened before, it always looks bad on a PR standpoint, on a public relations standpoint, when servers are merged. If you merge a server as a game developer, then you're essentially saying not enough people are interested in my game, therefore I have to merge. They want to avoid that by all cost, and they have religiously avoided this. They have had 1 million excuses why it has not been possible to merge yet, or why not to do cross-server, or why not to do anything in this means. And maybe some of these, concerns are valid. Maybe the technology isn't quite there. Maybe it would have some weird ping issues. But the thing is, what is worse than that? Not having a fucking game anymore. That would be worse. The same thing is, many people are concerned about, if we, merge servers, what is going to be with PvP and PvE distinction, and what is with roleplay and stuff like that. It's easy. Just make it, PvX, players versus X, and they can make up whatever they want. In the selection screen, they can maybe flag their account for a PvE account, and then they are not they're not able to be attacked in the free world. If they are, for example, flagged as a PvP account, then of course they can partake in world PvP, and everything is fine. That's a nice addition to all of this. Just make the players have a choice in all of this. I know that sounds a lot of like a PvE server. Only when you're flagged for PvP then this and this happens, and it's kind of a sad cop out, to say, well, the reason I also play on the PvP server, the reason many people not like that is they want to see that Republic guy or that Imperial guy, and they just want to immediately kill him, and not being able to do that kind of takes them out of this player experience. But what's worse than that? Being taken out of the game because all of the servers have to be shut down because the game no longer exists because the game is dead. That would be worse than that. I know that player immersion and these are valid concerns. What's worse than not having a separate roleplay server? Who roleplays in this game anymore? Nobody does that. And even if there is a select group of people, I don't want to offend roleplayers, I'm sorry. Maybe there's some roleplayers watching right now. So saying that there is this group of role players, then they will do their role playing. They can continue that. They don't need a special server for that. Just merge them. I know that there's concerns over in Europe because of the language barriers. Just make it one big German server, one big French server, and one big English server. That would be fine. Already the population of the 3 biggest German servers, the 3 biggest French, and the 3 biggest English servers would make a considerable and formidable, great, big, merged mega server. It would be absolutely fine. Everybody that talks German is on one server, everybody that talks French is on one server, everybody else in Europe is on the English server, which would be a very pleasant experience because that would be the biggest server of them all. I know that they have always, voiced concerns. It's not technically possible and they can't all run over the same server and the accessibility and the character limits and stuff like that. I have seen these beginnings of the game, and these servers were well able and capable of handling over 400 people on a fleet. And on average, you have around 100 to 200 people on the fleets on all of these servers. Maybe and it's declining. It's actually declining right now because of the all of the phasing that's came into the game. The guild ships and stuff like that. So what you would generally want is a bigger server, more people in your fleet chat, more possibilities. I know that certain servers have lagged out when it was more than 200 or maybe more than 300 people on the Republic fleet. But, just work around it. Just give them more capacity. Just make it work. Invest something. Convince, EA, convince them that you need that money. You need that for a better player experience. Because the worst thing you can have in this game is not the lack of content. Of course, content has to be there. But the worst thing you can have is not having any players to play the content that's there. That is the biggest problem. If I, on my server, for example, want to try to queue for PvP at 9 o'clock in the morning, I can't. Now you could ask, well, why do you want to play PvP at 9 o'clock? Well, maybe I just want to. Maybe it's Saturday morning and I just want to have a nice game of PvP. Maybe I just want to record something special. I can't until it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock when actual PvP pops up. That is ridiculous. How am I supposed to play this game? I have to wait 2 hours until I can actually play some PvP in there. That wouldn't happen in a game like WoW. It wouldn't happen there. And even though the PvP there is shit and is widely regarded as bad now by the players and is going in the downfall, at least you can play it. Not everyone is going to be happy with the content you provide. That's something that BioWare just has to realize. Not everybody is going to be happy with what you are providing, but they have to be able to experience it. If they are not because of lack of players, then they're like, well, nobody's here, I might as well go as well. And that's another subscriber you lost there. Right there, right then and there. That's the way you bleed subscribers and you hemorrhage them. So this has been going on for quite a while now in Star Wars in general. So the general policy has been, sort of a maintenance. And I have to now, maybe defend the BioWare a bit here because I don't want to mindlessly just trash, what they're doing. They're doing a formidable job for how little they have to work with. They have essentially no budget. It's all have been cut by EA. They have literally, a handful of developers making all of the content. It's an incredible, high order, of continuously providing yearly content. They want to make yearly updates. They confirm that they want every December they want a new expansion. They want that, and they have to somehow fill the time in between this with something that keeps players somehow invested in the game. They tried it in several different ways. They tried it with a Galactic Starfighter. They tried just to make the next big thing. They tried it with player housing. They tried it with with several things. They just tried and tried. And the only thing I can say is, of course, that makes the game interesting, and of course it's an interesting feature, but that's all gimmicks. It doesn't tackle the core problem. You know, it's nice to have the option to be in a starfighter. I personally don't like it. I fucking hate it because I'm bad at it, and I'm really reluctantly, just learning it. I don't like. I'm not no starfighter guy. Actually, I haven't purchased Star Wars to play a starfighter simulator. But it's there, it works, and some people take joy in it, and it's fine. It's a fine addition to the game. I'm not a big fan of player housing either. I just don't like the general notion of having a customizable house, but I know that people are that they like that they really like that. But you can make all of these things, and still you're reaching nobody if there's nobody playing the game. You just need that community, and it has been on a steady decline, because that what the big motivators of a game, which is not a gimmick, not player housing, not a starfighter mode or a special put on your super hat mode or something, whatever they could think of. What was the last big thing? What was the outfit designer, where you can just put on different outfits, which is nice. I have several sets on my bank, and I just loaded them all into my different loadouts, and now I can change my appearance on the whim. It's very nice. It's gimmicky, of course, and it's sort of these kinds of small quality of life improvements which make the game more enjoyable, of course. But I'll tell you what they're not doing. They are not making players stay in the game and playing the game. Playing with other players, sharing experiences is the most important thing of the game. I'm not going to remember the big day where, this was the day when they finally released Galactic Starfighter. Everybody was playing, it was so awesome. And I'm not remembering the day where I'm like, yeah, this was the day where they implemented finally the balanced PvP changes. This was finally the day where they implemented the new companion update with the new companion. I'm not going to remember any of these days as big days in Star Wars. The big days I am going to remember, and most of every other player is going to remember in this game, is that day where you and your guys did something awesome wherever. The big day where you finally killed the nightmare end boss of your content. Everybody was screaming in your voice chat. It was amazing. The day where you finally managed to get to 1/8 rating, through finally beating that one PvP 4-man group that has always beat you, and then you just got them and you just got the rating and you're just happy. That one time where you queued up with 8 other guys from your guild, and you randomly got matched together in a hutball game, and you just completely destroyed the enemies because you were 8 players and you were just coordinating so well. These are the moments you are going to remember, not anything that BioWare is going to patch in. Now, of course, as I said, they have to provide a platform for it, and they have to make players stay. That, of course, is somewhat related to the content and to the things they patch in. But, most importantly, they have to make the areas of the game accessible. So, in terms of PvP, and now we're doing the big loop. In terms of PvP, what does that mean? That means cross-server PvP. It's either, look, you have to face it now. This game's PvP is essentially dying or dead. People on the European servers are just, transferring wildly. The one 3-month period, this server is completely the mecca for PvP. Everybody wants to be there. The next month it's that server, and the month after that it's that server. Why? Because people are like nomads. They just, transfer here, they transfer over here, they transfer back, and it's just, it's like a plague of grass. I don't want to say it so negatively, because all these players want is a good player experience, and I can't blame them for it. If I hadn't had, have a guild and so many characters on my server, I would have probably already moved to some American server and played over there, and because they just have a bigger population, and just because I want to play the game. and you know, players, they want to play with the players they want to have, like, you know, and there's just no excuse that is voiceable. You know, I cannot possibly defend any excuse that you could think of why you shouldn't have cross-server PvP. You have to face it, it's either server merge or cross-server PvP. And, you know, you don't have to make, you know, if you're, you know, in fear that it gets impersonal because you don't know the players anymore you're playing with, it's fine. Make every player on your side from the same server, but have it, you know, set up in a way that you can play against, you know, teams from other servers. That's not a problem, is it? You know, everybody in your team speaks the same language, but you can play against French people, you can play against English people, you can play against German people at every time of the day, and you would have queue pops at 3 in the morning, and everybody would be happy. It would be a more balanced game for it. You would maybe even have like a hidden rating system, you know, for normal PvP, where the players who, you know, generally perform better, maybe get in a different skill category. But that's, you know, that's advanced stuff. You don't need that. Generally, what you would need is queue pops. You would need, you know, a game actually being open to be able to be played. And more so in ranked. Ranked is unplayable because at specific points in the week or at the evening, you can play 4-man PvP. If you haven't you know, spoken to anybody, then chances are you're not going to play PvP that evening. And I know it's kind of hypocritical coming from me because, as you know, I have some viewers on my server right now. They know that we are not actually playing any ranked PvP right now. We have been, you know, trying to get it going, but you know, the players aren't motivated right now, and I can't blame them for it because it's frustrating. It's not the problem that you're, you know, always playing against the same players and stuff like that. It's just you have to organize it so meticulously. You say like, yeah, and that day and that thing, and you need all 4 players every time. It's not like you can just, you know, oh, we're all here together tonight. Well, let's just queue for fun. You can't do that because there's nobody there. If you had cross-server and at least, you know, I'm not even expecting that you can list at any time and on the day. But if, you know, if maybe, and in the evening time, every day of the week you could play ranked PvP, maybe this game would have, you know, some sort of incentive for group ranked PvP, because right now it hasn't. It hasn't. It's literally the last frontier for good players to play this game. They're not interested in normal battlegrounds because all that they're experiencing there is kind of shit. They're not interested in solo ranked, although I know many people who do play solo ranked for a lack of a better system. They just, you know, go in solo ranked because, I don't know, I don't know if they're like some sort of masochist, but they do it. And the last frontier of, you know, good players and the last thing left to do for them in PvP is 4-man ranked. And you can't really do it, and that is speaking of, you know, of a BioWare point. You know, it's not that you can't play it because, you know, you're too bad or something. It's just that there are not enough players to do it, and that's a big problem. That's a big problem. But to say again, now what is coming in? What is coming in? Actually, in terms of PvP right now. Now, we're having a continued imbalance in classes. That's, of course, always going to be that way. That's okay. You just have to deal with it. The one big thing, which is a big turn-off for me in 3.0, is that classes and class stacking is more important than actual player skill. So, if you have, for example, a certain setup, a certain group, a certain you know, a certain goal, a certain cleave tactic or something like that, you know, if you've encountered rated PvP, you know that you see the same classes over and over again. It's a concern that has been voiced many times, and the problem is that your skill threshold isn't able to succumb the class imbalance. Like, there was a certain level on 55 where you could almost nearly play every class. You know, if you flinch your eyes right, you could almost play every class competitively. Of course, some classes were always going to be better than others, but you could kind of play all of them, you know, to different levels of success. But it worked. It worked. If you tried hard enough, it worked. Coming into 3.0 and in how PvP worked right there, you can't. You just can't. You're stuck with, you know, you are getting punished so hard solely for playing the wrong class that you are discouraged from playing it. And that kind of sits wrong with me. But, you know, I'm not going to call for more changes because in the best thing that can happen is that they fuck it up royally again after that. So I'm not gonna say that, yeah, we need some changes here and there. I think also BioWare is very glad that they have been able to kind of balance PvE. That has been imbalanced for a long time. So they're balancing around PvE, and it's okay. It's very important to make a decision as a game what you want to be. You cannot possibly ever at the same time balance PvE and PvP. You just can't. Just forget about everything you're trying to do, every aspect. It will never work. People who are with a way higher budget, who are way more invested in the game, who have more game knowledge of the game than anybody, you know, at EA or BioWare, have tried it and they have failed, and it's just not a thing worth doing. Never try to balance both things. Either balance it around PvP or balance it around PvE. I'm very glad that they chose the PvE route because there's more long-lasting content there. It's a bit unfortunate for the PvP folks, but they're trying their best, you know, with some of the other things they're bringing in. You know, the talent point system kind of is neat, you know, neat for PvP in that sense, and that kind of works out in that regard. So I'm not complaining about imbalances too much. So. Talking about what they are doing is, that's the next point. Dumbing down. They are dumbing down everything. In terms of, it's not really dumbing down, it's more of a casualizing it, you know? I was talking about the incentive of good players and high-skilled players of doing certain things. Now, I am of the firm belief right now that the only way you can now play Star Wars is casual, because if you're a hardcore player, the game really doesn't provide anything for you. I'm sorry, but it really doesn't. I've just said in PvP where the threshold lies is from an ranked PvP, and that doesn't work right now. And that's really all you can do. Or you can do something which I do, which is deliberately trying to challenge myself with certain constraints, you know, just to make it harder and you know, funny for some kinds of videos. You can do that, but again, you know, to what extent is that going to last you for, you know, the rest of the game? Not really much. Now, what else could you do? You could, you know, level your characters. I have every single character in every single way. I've got them all on level 60 right now, and I have even got some classes twice. I've also got them on different servers, so I can play there. So I really am not that interested in leveling any more characters. And again, I have already seen every single story, so why would I? Now, the next thing, what else could you do? You could do reputation grind. I have every single reputation on legendary, so I am on legendary rank with every reputation because I just like to do that. I've done every daily in the game. I have experienced everything in the game. I have done every raid in the game on nearly every difficulty level. I know there are some you know, exceptions. The nightmare content has always proven to be a bit of a obstacle for me. Always there was some, you know, exterior problem with why we could not do that appropriately, but I've always, you know, of course, done it afterwards, and you know, that's not of a problem. But just believe me, PvE content, I am there, I'm on it, I have done it, and there really isn't much to it right now. You know, right now, what do you have? You have 10 bosses again. Yeah, you've got 10 bosses. Admittedly, they are quite good and they're fun for now, but we are way past the farm stage. So what's happening right now is everybody's got the gear, and what is left to do? You can just, once again wait, or maybe play PvP or something like that. So what really is the incentive for me to keep playing? I've got no people to play it with. I've got no actual content in the game list. Oh, also, yeah, there's the conquest system. We're nearly as a guild onto the conquest thing of the Galactic Conqueror. So when that's gone, we don't have conquest anymore as an objective. So what really is there left to do? If you have played the game as extensively as I have, and you had enough time for that, if you have played as long as I have, if you've played this game for 3.5 years, which, first of all, respect to you, because there were times where there really wasn't anything to do, and really there was no real incentive to keep playing the game. Now, what is there left? What's left to do? Is the game worth it? I think that's a good title for the video. Is the game worth it? Worth what? Worth the money? I don't think that's a fair comparison to put a monetary value on it. Is it worth your time? Is the game Star Wars right now worth your time? What do you get out of it for investing that much time? What is, if you are like me, if you are a player that loves to min-max, that just loves to put everything you have into learning and mastering a game, what is there left to do for you? What is your incentive to play the game? I have to say I really don't know. Because in its current state, I am mainly playing it because of my guild, and because I like to make videos about it. And that's about it. So I have started about a year ago with making these kinds of videos. Fun and entertaining ones, with the commentary and stuff like that. But yeah, that's because it already got quite dull back then, and I just wanted to do something different about it. And I don't know, I'm really getting growing tired of it, because there really is nothing to do. And I really hate to say that, but it's looking more and more like this is not the game I am going to continuously play forever, like it was planned. When the game first came out, it looked amazing, as I said, and I wanted to play it, until the game shuts down. Now I'm not too sure about this. I'm, of course, not going to quit any time in the near future. You can be sure of that. I'm going to continue to make videos. You guys really like them. Really appreciative of that. And I'm going to, of course, provide more content in that matter. But I can tell you something. What this game really needs, in terms of PvP, which I would really love to see, is a new class. A new class. I want that. I would just forget about all of the balancing issues, and of course crossover has to come, and you have to make it better and merge the servers and everything, and have more players to play with and stuff like that. But more importantly, mix it up. We have had for 3.5 years the same mechanics on all of the classes. 3.5 years, nothing has changed. We've got the same 8 classes. Of course, there was a level 55 update, and every class got a unique new ability, which was PvP related. So every class had, some sort of new either mobility or heavy defensive thing, which really tampered with the class balance and made it more enjoyable in general. If if you think about level 50 PvP, which was truly imbalanced, the sorcerers, they were just victims left and right. You could do nothing with sorcerers at level 50. They gave them a bubble, which is nice. Snipers, of course, defensive role, all fine and dandy. But it didn't really change anything in the PvP game. It made, things better, but it didn't fundamentally change how the game in PvP is played. So essentially what you're doing is you're doing the same thing for 3.5 years. And I'm saying it's getting a bit old. So what do I want? I want a new class. Of course, a new class that would entail 2 new classes, because that's how the Star Wars system works. Every new class, splits up in 2 classes. So actually I want 2 classes. They, of course, will have got 3 skill trees, which means that they're going to come 6 new specs into the game. With these 6 new specs, you have got 6 new different types of enemies you have to deal with, 6 new different matchups for every single of your matchups. So that means that for your existing, 8 people, you already get 24 new matchups, which you have to learn and study and play against good players with. And it would be nice. You can maybe build a new rank team with one of the new classes. You can learn how this kind of new class works. How does it work with the other classes? That is the kind of level of interesting thing that I think that this game really needs. And I'm telling you something right now. If in the next patch, which is presumably going to come in December and is going to feature level 60, it's just presuming that, and then they're not announcing any form of new class or new spec, I have to say I am not too sure if I am very interested in playing the game then. But that remains to be seen, and I really hope they're going in the right direction, because they have to mix it up. Also, I don't want to, just mindlessly trash at it. I'm repeating myself here. I really, feel for the developers and what they are, having to do. They have kind of maneuvered themselves in a corner. Every single class has its own unique class story. They cannot, to the same extent, replicate that, because they would need a whole new class, and they would need space for that. If you look around, maybe on some of these areas, it's packed. It's absolutely packed. Every single phase that can exists already, because you have got 8 stories. 4 on the Republic side, 4 on the Imperial side. And, you have around 3 to 4 phases on every planet. That means you have around 30 to 36 phases on the entire planet. So there are really no more caves left for new classes. So they would either have to rework everything they have done prior to that, and I'm very understanding why they haven't done it yet, because they had more pressing concerns than bringing out a new class, or they do not give him a unique class story, which is fucking horrible, and I wouldn't want that. So, of course, by all means, do that. Another attempt, of course, could be just to have every class have 3 specializations. So you would keep your stories, but instead of the sniper, the agent, being a sniper and an operative, you maybe make him a droid technician. So have a three possible options. That is very viable. You conserve your development resources very well through that. You don't need to change anything about the game, and you would make it more interesting. I mean, of course, it's kind of a cop-out, but I would rather see that than see nothing. I think that is one of the biggest points I want to make clear. I know that everything I'm suggesting is absolutely suboptimal, or maybe not up to par. Maybe it will create new problems, but I can tell you one thing. Any new problem created through any of my suggested solutions is better than shutting down the game due to a lack of interest, or maybe just milking the game, just bringing in as much new players as possible, making the experience as horrible as possible to make them buy as much cartel coins as possible to maybe make some profit. I don't think this is the right way to play a game. I think a game, you should have a inspired community that really likes the game it's playing and brings in more people to play the game. The reason why World of Warcraft is so incredibly successful is, of course, on some level a nostalgic factor. People have played it in the past and stuff like that. But the people playing the game, they feel satisfied with it, and they they bring back other players. I don't know how many. Ask any WoW player. I mean, maybe there's some hardcore ones, but ask any WoW player how many times they have quit, and I can tell you they have quit numerous times. They have always quit WoW, but they are always coming back. And why are they coming back? They are coming back for the people they play with and to experience the moments in the game they are so happily living for. And this is what a game like Star Wars needs to prevail. It's not fancy new gimmicks. It's not a rideable. I don't know. It's not a rideable Gungan. I don't want to ride on Jar Jar Binks through the Imperial fleet. I don't want him as my personal slave in my stronghold. No. What brings people to this game are people that are playing the game and enjoying the game. So make the game as enjoyable as possible, and make the player experience as good as you can. And if that happens, and if we see more variety in what you do every day, then this is going to essentially save Star Wars, because right now it's going pretty downhill. I'm not a naysayer. I'm not one of these doomsday guys who says, "Oh my God, Star Wars is dead." I'm not saying Star Wars is dead. I'm saying Star Wars is going on a decline. It's underperforming heavily. It's way under its potential, and that is, of course, due to it coming out unfinished, losing half of its player base in the first 3 months and stuff like that. The game could have been radically different had it come out 6 months later than that. If the group finder had been there, if the first content like explosive conflict had been there, which worked out kind of nicely. Now, that was the introduction to the first real PvE content, explosive conflict. That was this kind of Navarre Coast type raid, with Toph and Vaughn, Kefef at the end. That was the first real content. If the game had released around that time, where this content was there, you would have had the next big thing. People would have stayed. People would say, well, it's not perfect, but it works. They wouldn't have been discouraged. They wouldn't have said, well, this game is utter shit, it doesn't work. No, they would have said, well, it's flawed, but it works. It's flawed, but it works. I think I'm always going to remember Star Wars that way. It's always been flawed. It's never been not flawed. There's always some point I would have wished for, saying, well, it would be nice if they had this, or it would have been nice if they had that. In terms of PvE progression, for example, why are there no leaderboards? They can do leaderboards for PvP. Why didn't they do some for PvE? That would have been a very good incentive for guilds to raid as fast as possible. And the fact that they are, organizing themselves, they are having the screenshots with the times and the forum threads, and they have the special websites where they post their kills and they link their achievements and show when exactly they killed it and what their server time is, and all of these stuff. You see, the interest is there, and I just don't understand how somebody could be so apathetic about this, just not caring, like, oh my God, the game is working somehow. I don't know. It's just so sad seeing Star Wars. It's such a nice game. I'm so passionate about it, but seeing it underperform so heavily because of these poor choices that have been made. I don't know. It's really heartbreaking. Really heartbreaking to see, because I really want this game to work. And as I said, I'm way past the other stuff, the other flaws. And I know the engine is shit. I know you're not going to get the best performance out of it, but I've learned to live with it. I really have learned to live with it, and I think it's fine. I think it's actually a bit fun that way. But I really like to be able to queue up and play the game if I want to, and not wait until enough players are there. So that's kind of my standpoint on things. Now, I haven't really. I've talked a lot about things that I'm passionate about, but I haven't talked to in detail about specific things and how I think about them. I know there's a new reward system where you can now no longer have ranked comms and you get everything for free and everything is easy, and that's also a problem. You shouldn't cater to the lowest common denominator. There should always be this kind of level of accomplishment. I know it kind of sounds contradictory. I said you have to cater to the player base that is most invested in your game. Of course, yes, you have to do that. You have to provide them with interesting content. What you do not have to do is spoon feed them with it. This is literally spoon feeding people gear, which makes no sense. Because what for? Why would they need that? Why does somebody who does not take the time to play PvP every day get rank gear? What for? What does he need that for? Please. If you're an avid and invested PvP player and you really want that one character to do the maximum amount of things, of course you want to have these rank commendations for that. There are several other fixes which would have been better than to just, completely remove ranked commendations. I can understand where they're coming from. It's not that easy. I know that from a lot of my toons. It's not that easy to gear them. So generally what happens, I just bolster them with PvE gear so that they get bolstered up to 2018 expertise. I don't actually equip my toons because that would take just way too much time, of which I'm not willing to invest. But I also acknowledge that I'm not going to have the maximum performance. I know that, and I say it's all right. I'm not going to have the maximum performance out of that character. I have got my sniper, and I have got my mercenary, and they are in their maximum gear, and I have no incentive of having any of my other characters equipped that way. And maybe if I want that, the sorcerer kind of is on the same level, so I want to get him equipped as fast as possible as well. But I know that it takes time, and I'm going to invest that time over gradually. It's going to happen. What I do not want is that I can just log on, maybe play PvP for a week, and then I'm just full gear, and then I never log on to that character again because he's finished. That makes no sense at all. And this is what the new system is going to do. So what I would heavily recommend, even though nobody of the actual development team is going to listen, because quite frankly, if they don't listen to forum posts and things directed at them, why should they listen to some random guy like me with a few subs on YouTube? Now, what I was saying is what they should have done is maybe change the conversion rate. Maybe make it that two Warzone commendations are one rank commendation. Maybe increase the amount of Warzone commendations you get through playing PvP. Because one of the things they voiced in that post they did in the PvP economy and ranked update is that they said that the threshold for entry level of PvP play is a bit too high. And I don't know if I 100% agree with that, but I can understand the concerns for it. And I say, yes, it's kind of tedious as a new player. You have to get your ass kicked in around 20 to 30 games, to which you have little to no impact if you don't know what you're doing. And even if you know what you're doing, you are not having the best of impact with no gear. So, yeah, you have to play around 20 to 30 painful games before you actually have gear and are useful. And of course you can somehow I know there's some purists out there, some PvP guys who say that's kind of like a rite of passage, something every new player has to go through. I don't quite buy into that. I think it should be, of course, harsh to players in a sense that they should be taught how to learn the game. That's very important. Punishment has to be there for players. Like, players have to see, okay, they're obviously doing something wrong with what they're doing because they're not having the same impact as other players. They really have to get to see that, because that is the only way you learn in these kinds of games, that you see, okay, I'm not performing as well as other players. Why is that? Why? What am I doing wrong? And it shouldn't be the gear. It shouldn't be like that people say, well, there's gear missing and so I can't do things. People, should kind of, get the gear and kind of learn for themselves that they are making, these player mistakes. On the same level, the progression is gear driven. So the only sense of accomplishment you get is through gear. So it's a very difficult path, and I'm getting quite philosophical in terms of game design and game development here. So it's quite a thin path to walk, because you have to have a decent level of progression, where you are motivated to further on play because there's a greater goal and a big sense of accomplishment, which goes beyond just playing a character well. You want your character to get better, to look better, to have better gear, to have more impact in the game. At the same time, you don't want to have your entire PvP experience revolving around what kind of gear you're wearing and how fast you can get that. And if it's too slow, then you're not going to have a nice time. That is also something you want to avoid. This is why bolstering exists. And I think bolstering makes a very, very, very good effort at doing so. Of course, it's broken in all sorts and manners of ways, because they can't possibly, bolster PvE gear. I don't know. They just can't manage to do that for some reason. They just can't, and it's quite sad. But it's very complicated. So I'm not gonna give them shit for that. But it's a good effort, and I think it works kind of nicely. And I don't think that there's any further requirement to that. I think the system works. I think the system works fine. You're not a victim when you're queuing up for PvP. Of course, you're less impactful because of the gear, but as you may noticed in a lot of my videos, I come in an ungeared tune. I just join the game and I do quite well. Of course, only if the enemies are not 100% on par, with my standards. But you can have an impact, and that kind of says something about the game. It works. It works on certain levels. So I'm really not. Well, I really don't think that it's a good idea to remove the highest tier of rewards, which is rank gear commendations, and I don't think it's a good idea to at the same time boost the Warzone commendation gains. It's either or. Either you boost Warzone commendation gains, which also passively boost the rank commendation gain, because they're directly linked through the 3-to-1 conversion, or you could buff the conversion rate, or, you could maybe, maybe you can remove the rank commendations, but then you make it that the Warzone commendation cost is very, very, very high of all of this, new gear, which you want to have. Because there is a certain element of grind which is kind of healthy, because it keeps you invested in the game. And if it's not too frustrating, and if you don't have to do it for too many characters, then it's a good way of keeping players invested in your game. And I think they shouldn't let go of it that easily as they are doing in Game Update 3.3. So what I'm going to predict in that sense is that many people are just going to gear very fast, not going to play that character again, go on to the next one, and then maybe lose interest because there's nothing left to do. They are full geared. Ranked PvP is no fun because of the reasons that I already stated, and then they're just like, well, maybe might as well, do nothing. So that's kind of bad. So, I don't know. They could have certainly thought of a more elegant solution, especially since they have people specifically paid to think of elegant solutions for these kinds of problems. And it really shouldn't be possible for, somebody out there just to come up with a different and a better solution than they. And I'm kind of concerned that they are not, they are never really considering anything that the community says. They are only considering what the community says when they're getting a shitstorm. Like, if many people are complaining and then they're saying, "Whoa, we have to change something," but they never, get onto any of the constructive criticism that comes in. Many people are making good suggestions out there. I'm on Reddit. I'm on the official forums. I'm seeing all of, tons of good suggestions of things that would work kind of nice. And for some reason, they always seem to pick the worst fucking idea they could possibly have. I don't know how they do it. It's a mystery for me. It's really a mystery for me. Because it's quite sad. It really is sad, as I said. So, these have been my thoughts on the game in general, on PvP more specific, and of course I've dwelled a lot about PvE because that is also a big part of my gaming experience in Star Wars. Not one that you know too much about because I generally only make PvP videos, but that is kind of my thoughts about the state of the game, which is admittedly quite sad, as I have already mentioned. But in case you were interested, that is the kind of things I have to say about it and how I stand to all of the things that are going on right now. Not too happy with the direction they are taking things into. But of course, there is still the big change that they said is going to come for PvP. I haven't forgot that, Ari Musco. I know that you once said that somewhere out there. You said, "Yep, that big change is going to come." I'm not too confident that there still is on anyone's agenda over there at BioWare, but I'm still tuned. I'm still ready for your big everything changing PvP change. So maybe have a look at that. We don't know. Maybe stay tuned for the future. I'm still going to be around, of course, in this game. I'm still going to do regular uploads, regular videos. I just, wanted to express my opinions because some people have asked for it, and if you stuck around to this point, then kudos to you. You've just wasted around 1 hour and 10 minutes of your life, and listen to my hopefully not too annoying voice. My name is Drewlik. You have been watching an awfully long video and some PvP. And as always, have a good one.